On behalf of Cricket Australia, I want to apologise to all Australians that these events have taken place, and particularly to all the kids who love cricket and idolise the players. I want to also apologise to Cricket South Africa and South African fans that this issue has overshadowed what otherwise should have been a wonderful series. As the Chairman has said in his statement earlier tonight, we recognise that this issue goes beyond the technical nature of offences and various codes of conduct. It's about the integrity and reputation of Australian cricket and Australian sport. Ultimately, it's about whether Australians can feel proud of their national sporting teams. That depends as much on the way players conduct themselves as it does about winning or losing. It's all about how we play the game. Earlier today, I received an update about the investigation being conducted by our Head of Integrity, Ian Roy. And in conducting his interviews, Ian was also accompanied by two ICC integrity officers. Whilst that investigation is not yet fully complete, preliminary findings have been considered and discussed by the Cricket Australia Board earlier today. The key finding is that prior knowledge of the ball tampering incident was limited to 3 players: Captain Steve Smith, Vice-Captain David Warner and Cameron Bancroft. No other players or support staff had prior knowledge, and this includes Darren Lehman, who, despite inaccurate media reports, has not resigned from his position. He will continue to coach the Australian men's team under his current contract. The players involved have officially been reported for breaching Cricket Australia's Code of Conduct under Article 2.3.5. Terms, and I paraphrase somewhat from the article: conduct at any time that is contrary to the spirit of the game, unbecoming of a representative, harmful to the interests of the game, or brings the game into disrepute. Once the investigation has concluded in the next 24 hours, sanctions will be announced and we'll go through the Cricket Australia Code of Conduct process, and I'll come back to that in a moment. All 3 players who have been reported will leave South Africa tomorrow. Their replacements in the Australian squad for the 4th test here in Johannesburg will be Matthew Renshaw, Glenn Maxwell and Joe Burns. Replacement players will arrive in South Africa over the next 24 hours. Tim Payne has been officially appointed captain of the Australian men's test team. Back to the reporting. In regard to the 3 players on report, I want to stress that we are contemplating significant sanctions in each case. These sanctions will reflect the gravity with which we view what has occurred and the damage it has done to the standing of Australian cricket. I fully understand the appetite for urgency for more detail. However, urgency must be balanced with due process, given the serious implications for all involved. In addition to sanctions for individuals, Cricket Australia will take the opportunity to review the conduct and culture of our professional teams, and naturally this will involve consultation with relevant experts. We'll have more to say about how this will proceed in the coming weeks. A clear focus will be on re-engaging with Australian cricket fans and the Australian public to rebuild respect and pride. I also want to place on record my strong support for the sentiments that ICC CEO David Richardson has expressed about the need to raise standards generally. I agree completely that the ICC and member countries, member boards, including Cricket Australia, need to define more clearly what is expected of players and then enforce the standards in a consistent fashion. And I agree that all member countries, including Cricket Australia, need to show more accountability for their team's conduct. Winning is important, but not at the expense of the laws or the spirit of the game. In conclusion, I understand and share the anger and the disappointment of the Australian cricket family about these events. This is a serious issue and it needs to be dealt with properly and with due diligence. But now, as a matter of urgency, we'll complete the process by tomorrow morning, and in the next 24 hours we'll be in a position to announce sanctions. I'm now happy to take questions.
We'll go with Chris first.
I don't want to go into the specifics of sanctions and issues that might be covered there. It's not appropriate at this stage. The big picture is that three players have been reported, and we'll deal with finalising the report and sanctions later.
May I ask, whose idea was it? I mean, that is something that the investigation will determine.
Again, there are issues that I can't go into because we're in the midst of process. I suspect some of that will come out in due course, but it's not appropriate because of the technical nature of things, the process that we're working through, for me to divulge details of the investigation.
Has the team become arrogant?
I think this is a reminder to us of the importance of how Australian cricket fans want their players to behave. They want them to be. They want to be proud of their players, and clearly, a situation like this is extraordinarily bad for Australian cricket. And I share, as I said earlier on, the anger and disappointment of Australian cricket fans in regard to this behaviour.
James, can the culture and image of the Australian team be reshaped with Darren as the coach, and you can discuss that with him?
Look, Dan, I haven't gone into any detail. To be honest, I've arrived in South Africa early this morning. Ian Roy hasn't even been in the country for 24 hours and has worked very hard on that. I think first things first, we're trying to deal with reporting issues and then sanctions, and we understand the urgency around that. The need for all of you and others to know where we're up to. That's the real focus right now. And as I said, later on we'll work through process around that review that I mentioned earlier.
James, there's one word you haven't mentioned. Did they cheat in your eyes? Is this cheating?
This is not in the laws of the game. It is not in the spirit of the game. And again, I am angry and disappointed.
Is it cheating?
It is not a good day for Australian cricket.
Sure. James, what's the attitude to the other players in the team who've been dragged into this by those three teammates?
It's difficult for me to say. I haven't spoken to everyone in the team. I've spoken to a limited few, but it's. I can only imagine, but I think it's better that you ask them.
James, do you get the feeling this is an isolated incident, or has it happened previously?
Look, I think the feeling from Ian in his review is that it's an isolated incident, but again, they're things that I don't want to go into too much detail around right now. But I certainly hope it's an isolated incident, but it's certainly one of significant concern.
Hi, there's accusations that there's a culture of arrogance and nastiness that's entered the Australian cricket team. Given that, have you considered your own position?
Look, at the end of the day, we want Australian cricket fans to be proud of the Australian cricket team. We're all responsible in that regard, and we will all ensure that we take the necessary steps to address that.
James, how many players were interviewed during the process?
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but most of the players were.
And officials?
Yes, and again, I don't want to go into the specifics, the detail, because that's not appropriate. That's Ian Roy's domain, and it's better. But I can say that, as I touched on earlier on, Ian has covered a lot of ground in the short space of time that he's been here, and he was, through all of the interviews yesterday, accompanied by the 2 integrity officers from the ICC.